The information presented in this podcast is for general information purposes only. In line with the Data Protection Act 2018, there will be no mention of any child, family, or local authority. While our hosts are qualified social workers registered with Social Work England, the content of this podcast does not establish a social worker to client relationship. For any specific questions or concerns about your situation, we encourage you to consult with your local authority for guidance specific to your situation. Thank you. I was still young and you're walking into families' houses and, you've got maybe a mum who's in her 40s going...
Do you even have kids?
Do you even have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you know? And you're
depending on what wig I have on, like, you quickly learn that you don't get one.
Sink or swim? Sink or swim?
Sink or swim. I swear for my life, girl.
Right, let's get started.
Let's get into it.
Go take it away.
All right, so who am I? I'm Rita. And I'm a social worker. I'm a social worker and right now I'm currently practicing in the health sector. But my background is sort of local authority social work, so doing child protection. So I'm mainly working with children and families. But in the current role I'm in now, working with sort of vulnerable adults, so safeguarding children and adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you?
I'm Paris. I'm a social worker also. I am currently a perinatal social worker. So I work with pregnant women and women post-birth with severe to moderate mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Also pregnant myself, if it isn't obvious. I also have a background. So I work for the NHS, but I also have a background in children and families. That's where I trained. That's where I started. That's where I built my social work career to kind of transition over to the NHS.
Yeah.
And now I guess I support practitioners within the NHS.
Let's talk about that support. Because that's definitely how I think we clicked.
Yeah.
In how we met.
So with that support currently, I guess I'm offering consultations on safeguarding. So as safeguarding is my background, that's where I started. It's supporting the people with or the practitioners within the NHS around how to safeguard the patients and service users that they're working in. For me, it's adults. So I work within adults in the NHS in the perinatal team. But of course, because it's perinatal, we cover the babies. So we have up to 1-year-olds. So a lot of my support, although we work with adults, is around the safeguarding of the children or the baby. And of course, there's always other children within the household as well. So that's where my consultation and advice and support goes out to the practitioners. But also I do meet with clients as well and patients and have conversations and offer support and advice to them as well. And speaking of that support, I guess that's where we kind of met. And you were on your ASYE, so I'd say explain the newly qualified.
Yeah. So when we met, actually, I was just completing, or I can't remember, I had just completed my ASYE year. So that's the assisted and supported year in employment. So that's the year where they round off, you sort of round off your student years and consolidate your learning. And you're still protected. So your caseloads are protected and you have... You still have, a level of oversight over the decision making that you're doing. So even though you're working autonomously, you're still supported with a framework, which is similar to your student days. So I remember it was really exciting when they said, there's going to be a student coming to the team. So I was really excited because I wanted to be a support to the person that was coming, because someone had been a support to me. So big yourself up. They know who they are.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because now you are the one that ended up supporting me into the current role that I've gone into. So when I wanted to make the switch from local authority to the NHS, it was very much you showed me the route and really supported me in what to do there. But I didn't ever feel that it was I'm supporting you. I always kind of felt like, I just want to be a helping hand.
Yeah.
To sort of help you navigate. So I think it was as well very early on in our relationship, we kind of realized that there was this gap in the sort of process of becoming a social worker, that mentorship isn't necessarily built in. So you have the frameworks of, you produce a portfolio, you have a practice educator, you have maybe you might be buddied up with someone in the team, but that framework of, would I even go as far as to say sisterhood? Would I go as friendship even? I remember the scoffs I got on my first day.
Yeah, me too. Well, we entered the same team. It's just Rita entered the team a year ahead of me. And that support that you think should be there from your peers and those who are most experienced isn't always necessarily there.
And I think there's a bit of annoyance as well because of the protection that you have
absolutely
as a student or as a newly qualified social worker. There's a bit of annoyance because
we have to handhold her.
Yeah.
She has a smaller caseload.
And I ain't got time. I've got section 47s to be dealing with.
I'm gonna it means you have to have the more complex cases because the newly qualified or the student can't take on those types of cases. Yeah.
So that's definitely, so I think it was a natural progression to why we're here today, really.
Yeah, because I came into social work like, what is going on? What is this? Okay, I've just come out of uni. I've started here. Things are going okay. But how do I navigate this? Like,
did you know you wanted to do social work? So before you embarked on your degree, was social work in your trajectory?
I feel like it was in my trajectory, but it wasn't necessarily like, I'm going to be a social worker. Although I do have one vivid memory of being really young. I'm probably going to say primary school age. And I was in the car. I say it's vivid. It's probably not even a vivid memory. But I just remember sitting in the middle seat, having two adults there. I don't even remember who they were, and being like, yeah, I'm going to be a social worker when I'm older.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but did I even know what a social worker was? I don't know.
I wanted to be a lollipop lady.
Oh, bless you. Shout out the lollipop ladies.
Shout out the lollipop ladies.
They have them anymore.
I like their jackets. That was the reason.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was going to be my path. And I hadn't had, contact with social services so much as a child or anything like that. So I don't know where that came from. But I know I studied health and social care in college. That was a level 3 diploma. So I felt like I was going somewhere towards support, health, social. And I remember kind of explaining to my mum about health and social care and saying that, if I want to go health, I can go health. If I want to go social, I can go social, but not really understanding
what that meant.
What that was. And then when you kind of get into that, you're kind of going down the path of, you just think old people in care homes and so on. And that's what your placements were in health and social care. And then I did venture, I didn't go straight to uni after college, but I worked with young adults with disabilities in their homes. So they lived in supported living, and I'd go into their homes with them and take them out into the community. And, spent a lot of time going cinema, playing golf. And that was working with people that had Down syndrome, autism spectrum, and just a range of disabilities. I used to stay overnight at their house.
Oh, really?
Them. Yeah, I helped them with cooking, and I couldn't even cook myself. I started at 17.
Yeah.
So I kind of always knew that I wanted to do some kind of help. I know, honestly, that was one of the best jobs that I ever had. So I knew I was always going to do something to help those that were in need. I just didn't know where it was going to go. And I think after a couple of years of doing that, it was like, okay, where are we going with this? What do you want to do? How can you support people further? And then it was a case of looking at what's out there. And it was like, oh, do you know what? I'll give social work a go. And during that time, I guess with social work, they used to say you have to kind of be a mature student.
Yeah.
Which is complete rubbish now. And they will take you on at 18. But at that time, it would be like, oh no, if you're 18...
You don't have enough lived experience.
You don't have enough lived experience. You're not mature enough. You need to kind of go out there and get some experience first. So I guess I did that without knowing that I was going to go into social work. So I got my experience and thought, okay, I'll give social work a go. And here I am now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. That's how I kind of ended up in social work as well. For me, I didn't have a health and social care background. Like growing up, I actually wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a doctor. But just for my background didn't allow me to do my experience in childhood didn't allow me to sort of pursue that as a dream. And I left home. So I had to adjust to the choices that I had made then. I then decided I was going to go into pilotry, and I started an engineering degree. Which,
oh my God, I didn't know that.
Oh, well, you know that
you
now.
went into pilotry, wicked. Okay.
But I pursued a relationship instead. And in that relationship, I've had my daughters. So it was in that decision actually that I decided when I was pregnant with my second daughter, I decided like I want to do something for my girls.
Yeah.
I want to do something that will allow me to give them the time, like the day-to-day time. And I also want something that I could build a career out of. So essentially the first time when I went to apply at uni, I went to apply for occupational therapy.
Oh.
Yeah, I liked the way that it sounded. And I thought, okay, maybe I could do something like that. It will be something where I can help people. Generally in my friendship groups, I am that person who does like to be a support to my friends.
Definitely.
So I thought, okay, I've kind of played the role, so I might as well do that. And when I went to the uni, they'd said, oh, you know, occupational therapy's gone. But I was so determined that I wanted to start that September.
Mm-hmm.
I asked what other courses were available, and social work was one of them.
Okay, so it was by chance, basically.
It was literally by chance.
That's crazy. And the fact that you said occupational therapy,
Mm-hmm.
I never understood what an occupational therapist is until I got to
you got
NHS.
Yeah.
As a social worker in children and families and so on, I had no idea what occupational therapists did.
Mm-hmm. So even at the time, I had no idea what social work was. I just knew they'd offered me 3 different courses. These are the ones that are available for you to choose from. I think one of them was business. One of them was some sort of science related one. And then there was social work. So I thought, what's the closest thing to occupational therapy? Social work. So I went for that. And honestly, I didn't know what I was getting myself involved in. And I don't think I actually grasped what I was getting myself involved in until that first year of practice. I won't even say on the placement, because even on the placement, I was still very protected. There was still a level of room to apply a therapeutic sort of approach. And, you know, you have the room to sort of work with a lower caseload. So you can really work with that family and sort of apply all your social work theories that you're learning. But I think it's that first year of practice that it really hit home. Like,
I agree.
Right, we are strap up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Literally. And I think because the first placement is 70 days.
Yeah.
I did my first placement in adult substance misuse.
Okay.
So again, in the social work world, in terms of the level of like risk that you're managing in children and families, adults with generally capacity and so on, there's a big difference in that kind of risk. And that's 70 days. So you spend a lot of the first beginning of it just kind of plowing through, reading policy.
You know?
Yeah, I'm just here to tick my days off, really. And then the second year's up 100 days.
Yeah.
And that's when I went to children and families and somehow thrived.
Because you're a wicked practitioner.
Thank you. Honestly, I somehow thrived. And I think people saw that I had the knowledge and the capabilities, and probably through a lot of help and support and you kind of breaking things down to me and explaining things to me. And, you know,
things you already knew, by the way. And I think that was the shift for you in you noticing that actually a lot of your strengths were already in you. It wasn't something that you needed to build. And there was a conversation we were having earlier about actually, was that a strength for us in sort of being naive in some of what the expectations of the real practice of social work would look like? Would we have avoided it entirely if we had known what was there, maybe by self-doubt or insecurity or not thinking that we would be able to fit in those spaces?
Yeah. For me, academia, I feel like struggling at uni with the academic side of things and you know, there's a lot of law within social work that we follow and that we cover, but just academically, I was struggling with those essays. I couldn't understand what they were asking of me. I found out I had dyslexia in my second year of uni, I think it was. So that helped me make sense of why I was struggling, but it didn't change the struggle. It was like, okay, yeah, maybe I can get a bit more protected time, or, you know, I'm going to say abuse, because I was always that person that did my assignments last minute because I was struggling. But then I'd kind of request extra time because, I've got dyslexia.
Because you're entitled to it.
Because I'm entitled to it. Exactly that. But yeah, I think it was the academia side. So because I struggled there, I felt like when I got into the workplace or onto my placements, it wouldn't translate. And then I think kind of meeting you, having that support, and you really breaking things down. I think one of the things that you even said to me was that you just need to understand your learning style, Paris. And
do
you remember? Yeah. And it was kind of like, learning style.
I remember you were kind of looking at me like,
what's that? I don't even know my learning style. And that's what it was. It was trying to understand how I learn better. And that's when I realized maybe I work better with people better, and I'm practical. I'm not an academic, and that's okay. I didn't do too bad at uni. You know, I got better than the 3.
You did really well. You did really well.
And I was still disappointed with my grade, but it wasn't the grade that mattered. And I think it wasn't until I actually got out there, started practicing, and realizing that actually all that theory stuff is useful. It helps. It's great. But I felt like social work was very much based on you as a person and how you interact with people. And what you take from conversations, how you listen to people, how you can explain things and have an understanding, of the law and legislation, because we have to follow that kind of stuff. But that does come with the people skills. Yeah,
because some of those joint visits that we done, it really was the street knowledge that we have that was getting us through those visits. And some of the families that we were visiting, you know, it was that self-reliance on, all right, put social work theories and everything to the side. How am I going to engage this person in a way that they're not going to feel threatened? In a way that they're not going to feel that I'm here as an authoritarian who's, you know, trying to pull their family apart. And I think it's understanding those sort of cultural nuances by having that lived experience that we were able to get through some of the cases that we worked, I think. And that's definitely a strength I saw in you that I was then able to reflect that and see that in myself. So even though a lot of the time when we're speaking, you do sort of refer to that time as, you know, you supported me through that time. I think we were a support to each other. I think we met each other at the right time where, we were able to sort of water each other's plants. Lean on
each other, water each other. Absolutely. Yeah, because for me as well, going in, I can't remember. I was still young. I'm still young now. But I was still young, and you're walking into families' houses and, you know, you've got maybe a mum who's in her 40s going,
do you even have kids?
Do you even have kids? Like, what do you know? And you're like,
depending on what wig I have on, like, I can look much younger and I can look much older. And, you know, you do have people questioning your knowledge. You do have people asking, when did you even qualify?
Questioning your life experience.
I you know, I really had to build up a shell to protect myself against people who look like me and expect a different sort of approach from me. And I would be worried, especially culturally, you know, I've been brought up to respect my elders. So I'm being asked in a professional capacity to go into a home where there are people who are older than me, and I have to tell them that how they're parenting their children is not great.
And sometimes coming from the same background that you're
from. It's still something till today. When I walk into a family home, I have to have a level of self-awareness, because I still have to manage my own personal values. And even though I understand what I'm doing there and why I'm there, my personal upbringing isn't fully able to just leave me in those moments. So it is something I've had to develop over time.
And I guess that kind of brings us to why we felt this podcast was necessary. In terms of like bringing that awareness to people about how we work, what it is that we do, breaking down that stigma, working amongst people that look like our...
Because I've told you when some of them have cussed me.
You've had some real experiences.
You know, people telling me I need to go and think about my life. I'm working with the systems that are oppressing our communities. I'm working within the systems that are breaking families apart, taking, people's children away. And unfortunately, there is a disproportionate number of children from specific communities that are removed from their homes, that don't get offered the same sort of early interventions that other families within those same communities are offered. And it's I've had to question myself.
Yeah, you do.
And there is that worry, but I think all in all, what has led me personally to this podcast is seeing the benefit of embracing a different way of working within those systems. Because I don't think you can influence a system from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can only influence a system from the inside out.
Absolutely.
And I think even in just the way we have been able to practice, in the way that we've practiced in the different roles, I think we have ignited some change.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we fought for the loan policy? So we can get the loan working policy, so we can get the alarms.
The alarms, yeah, because that's serious. You've had some cases of being locked in houses.
Locked in people's houses.
Yeah. And, we are the only professionals that generally do go out there singly to kind of raise a concern and say, hey, like, can you let me into your house? But I also have concerns about the way that you're parenting your children, or I have concerns about the upbringing that your children are having. But yet we don't get to go in twos unless there's something really obvious. We don't get, like, the police, they go with each other, they get in a car.
And sometimes you'll call the police to come go with you, and they'll be like, yeah, check it out and then let us know.
Yeah. And they get to come in their uniform and they get to come in their cars in groups, and they already have that people already look at them as, it's the police, be careful kind of thing. They have that authority already. Whereas we come in, I'm a person of colour, so already I'm down here. And then it's like, again, then you look at my age, and then it's like, who's this young girl coming in trying to talk to me about my parenting? I could be your mother, and we don't get that armour. And the loan working policy, that we fought for and got the policy in, was really great, because the alarms was something that we needed. I think there were still issues with having those alarms. And it was fiddly about getting them. But the fact that we had to fight to get the protection, because we're going out on dangerous visits, and visits with perpetrators, visits with men, women, people that harm their children purposely.
And you just don't know who's going to be behind the door. Do you remember some of the visits we would go to, and you're expecting a household of 3, and then you actually get there and it's actually a household of 6?
Don't even go there. That was my first case. I'm not going to get into it. That was my first ever case that I got given. And, it was supposed to be a first case as a student.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be like a really low level case. Just going, the boys have been missing school, just kind of have a look at what's going on. And I get there and can't get hold of the family, and they're staying in a whole different place. And there were 4 children, 2 younger girls, and the result ended in a full care order of all 4 of those children. But it was supposed to, and that went through a whole court case, everything. And that was supposed to be a real low level. And at no point was that protection there to be like, do you know what? We need to take this case away from you. And it spiraled and it spiraled and it spiraled. And I did have some good level of support. I'd come to you because you weren't actually obviously supervising me or anything like that.
Yeah.
The level of support that you were giving was as a buddy, as a friend, as someone who'd been in the position that I was in the year before, but you weren't my supervisor. And my supervisor was having her own issues and politics within the team that I was completely unaware of.
Let's talk about that, by the way, at some point.
Yeah, the politics.
The team politics.
The team politics. I had discussions of that in supervision and how to be a bit more mindful as to what's going on, because again, we spoke about it earlier, being really naive.
Yeah.
Coming in and just being like, oh yeah, I'm here. Like, this is my first office job.
And everyone's going to embrace me and make me the baby of the team. And they're just like, what are you even doing here?
What are you doing here? But yet nobody really wants to offer you that kind of support. So I wasn't really getting the support on the case. And again, that was my first case, trying to navigate the social work world, which we know as practitioners is difficult to navigate, let alone being someone who's having to access the social care as as a family member, as a mum, even as a child. But we were even struggling as newly qualified and students trying to navigate the system and realizing that, okay, there's not really much help and support here. So
Definitely.
if we're not getting the help and support that we need, how the hell am I going to be helping families?
And do you know what? I had this preconception, especially when I was, in my studying days, gearing up to getting into the social work profession, that on my first day, I would be provided this sort of resource pack with different sort of signposting agencies that you'll be working with and, social work tools that I will use in my practice. Sort of we're expected to work with children directly. So you're expected to see that child one-on-one and you're supposed to have sort of tailored activities to do with that child. And I had deceived myself, or I'd been led to believe that I would be given a pack, like a starter pack, you know? And you quickly learn that you don't get one.
Sink or swim. Sink or swim.
Sink or swim. I swear for my life, girl.
Yeah, thank God I can swim. Thank God I can swim.
Yeah. And I do think it's this grit that we're coming from. That's the mentality that we have in the backgrounds that we're coming from. That's sort of that street mentality that you do have. It's a sink or swim world out there. It's every man for themselves, as we like to say. But it was a learning curve in having to build that resource pack. And I think that that's another reason for a podcast such as this, so that we can help to create that for you. Or at least just let you know you need one.
Rule number one, you need a starter pack.
You need a starter pack. So start creating
whoever
that.
you are. Whether you're a parent who has received, has had a social worker come and visit you because you need that support, or they feel you need that support, or whether you're a student or a newly qualified social worker and you're stepping in and you're like, how does this work? And you're all geared up and happy and someone's going to come and burst your bubble real quick. So,
real quick.
Yeah. You
so
need
it's definitely one of the things that I cover for my students. So that, for my lecturing, social work students and students who are in the sort of health and social care field, that's one of the things I cover from day one.
Yeah.
We are going to start to build your professional tool pack that you need. So when I share links, when I share signposting services, when I have guest speakers come, store these things in a Word document somewhere. It will become useful at some point. And I wish that was something that was done for us, so we didn't waste time panicking and being anxious. When you get those cases and you just don't know what to expect.
Don't know where to start.
You don't even know where to start.
You've got all these concerns that have been raised and you're like, so what do I do now? Assessment framework.
What's that?
And that is the crux of social work. But it's like, okay, that's the assessment framework. And, we have to cover, child development, all these different things, parenting capacity. But how
have you actually done an assessment as part of your qualification? No.
Yeah. And how do I translate that now to be able to give my manager this assessment that she's looking for?
I don't know.
How do I get that? How do I get that from going to see a family? And that's like the basic stuff that you need to know, that I really didn't feel equipped.
I'm never going to forget my first day when I was asked, all right, Rita, you've been allocated this family and you need to go out and complete this assessment, right? You've got 20 days to return it. And I just remember, I just remember feeling completely like, when the blood just rushes out of your body. And I just kept saying to her, but how am I going to do it? So what do I need to do? And she's already turned around back to her desktop at this stage. I've given you what you need to do, get on with it. And I'm so thankful for the person that was just like, Rita, I'm going that way anyway. Jump in the car, come, let's go. And she was like, I'm going to teach you how to work smart, not hard. And she really just sort of handheld me, not in a way that she took over the visit, but she just having her there as a senior member of the team was, I can never take away from what I learned from her, and, just encouraging me to shadow her on her own visit. So, I'm going along to a visit. Do you want to come along? I'm about to call a parent. Do you want to come along?
Yeah.
Let me read your assessment before you send it through. And she's going to laugh now, actually. I remember my first assessment that I sent to her, and she was just like, backspace. She's just like, cut out chunks
Delete all
and
of that.
chunks of paragraph. Right, this don't need to be there. This don't need to be there. What's the relevance of this? And I remember I was getting really upset. Like, why are you deleting everything? That took me ages to write. But I'm so thankful to her, because if that wasn't done with me, she wasn't a manager in the team. She wasn't an assistant manager. She was just another social worker who probably saw a little bit of herself in me, in terms of maybe she'd had a similar experience in her sort of starter years, and she wanted to help out. But yeah, if I hadn't received that from her, I don't know if I would have been able to give that to you.
Yeah. And I think I had a few experiences with her myself, and I recognize the delete of the backspace. I think she done that to me as well a couple of times. But even asking those questions, you know, like, what is the relevance of this? And when she asks you, you're kind of like, yeah, you was just taking notes in your visits, and these notes are now here, so you're just gonna add them to your assessment, kind of thing. But yeah, I appreciate her too, because she helped you, and that's what helped me. And I've also supported other students and people that came along after me, because I know how difficult it was during that time of trying to build my career and trying to be a good social worker and not knowing how to be a good social worker. And that's where the role modeling came in, and not necessarily having the best managers, but not knowing that.
But not knowing that at the time.
Yeah, you didn't know it wasn't a good manager, because that was your first manager that you've kind of had. So yeah.
And I think as well, why this podcast is needed is because I think it's nice to know that other people have struggled. I think that for me personally, and for other people that I know that are in the service that I've spoken to, one of their worries is that they're not coping well.
Yeah.
And you seem to think that everyone else is coping really well.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the hidden side of social work that can lead to burnout, because you don't want to be the one to throw the towel in. You don't want to be the one to seem like you're not performing in the same way as others. And I think it's important for us to talk about our limitations. I think it's important for us to sit in that discomfort of knowing that we can't fix it all.
Yeah. We're not superheroes.
We're not superheroes.
As much as people think we are, we're really not.
And I also think that it's important for us to have a space to just talk openly about some of the things that we experience, and the barriers that we face, and the different things that come up for us, whether it's professionally or personally, because personally I've had to answer some very difficult questions as well, as to why have you chosen this career?
Yeah.
You know, why have you allowed yourself to be part of a system that for many years our community has viewed is oppressive?
Yeah.
Or, you know, more recently from my children, asking why, you know, you're staying late to support this family or this family. And that was, you remember, my shift for wanting to go into sort of the health side of things. That was one of the driving factors, because within the local authority, it's not a 9 to 5. If a family is not available until 6:30 p.m. and you need to have that assessment in, you're going to make yourself available at 6:30 p.m. But then that means you're getting home when your daughters are already sleeping or getting ready to sleep, you know, and they would ask, well, mummy, when are you going to spend time with me?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to give a platform for these conversations to be had. So yeah, you know, people know that they're not alone.
People know that we're real, that they are human also. What our work looks like and what it is that we do, but also that how people can navigate our system. And, you know, no one's really spoken from an insider to those who use the system. A lot of the podcasts that we do come across or see relating to social work or any of the kind of content out there is social worker to social worker, which I think is stuff that we will cover and that we want to cover. But ultimately, it's also to support those family members, and not just family members, friends, people, because social work topics affect everyone, because it's real life. And for us, this is a job, this is a profession, this is social work. But actually, on the flip side of it, it's someone's life.
Yeah.
That they're having to try and navigate themselves, and they're going through that issue or trauma or problem, whatever it may be for them. And we're on the professional side of it. as much as I'd say we can lock off and close off, it's difficult to do that within social work.
It's hard because some cases, you know, it's not a 9 to 5. It is a 9 to 5 job in terms of
your contract.
That's the hours on your contract. But there are some cases that you're taking home with you.
Yeah.
You know, there are some doors that you close and you leave those children behind, or whoever's vulnerable inside that home, and you are worried for them.
Yeah.
You know, or you go on holiday, and I remember I used to get anxious about switching my phone back on, my work phone on, because I just know it's going to be, you know, email. And it can be really, really worrying. And if you haven't been given the frameworks to support yourself, so that's definitely one of the things that I think we want to cover in sort of how to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge that that's how we feel as professionals. Oh, I'm anxious to turn my phone on, but someone's living that experience. Like I'm stressed because, you know, I've come back from a holiday of, it's just a Monday morning, and it's been a heavy weekend for a family member, and I'm tired and I'm stressed, and I've had whatever I've been doing over the weekend, but I'm getting Merlin reports. But that means that there's been a domestic abuse situation over the weekend, or a child's gone missing over the weekend. So that is someone's reality. And I guess, we want to be able to support people in understanding what our world looks like as a professional, and how they can navigate that world and be equipped to kind of understand how to navigate
and potentially avoid it as well.
Absolutely.
So sort of like really lead into that prevention as opposed to reactive.
Yeah.
Because if we think about, like I'm thinking about a lot of my first home visits with a family. That first visit is really spent releasing some of that anxiety for that family. And explaining what you're actually doing there. What a social worker actually does. And a lot of the time it's, oh, okay, so you're not here to do this and this and this,
to take my child away.
You're actually here to support me. So I think it's important.
I think it's been a long time coming. I think we're there. We're ready. I'm glad we're here.
we made
it. And let's let people know how to navigate this difficult system, and let's help us, our service users, our patients, but let's also help our newly qualifieds, our students, and also our people that have, our social workers that have been in practice for many years, because we do need that change.
We need a shift. I'm sorry, we need a shift. Because the world is changing before our very eyes.
Absolutely.
And the
legislation's dated. But that's a topic for another day.